Great. Well, welcome everybody. We are very excited to have all of you join us today. Um, my name is Carrie Jones. I'm the president and CEO of Elevated. Elevated is an organization that serves multiple communities. Our mission is to increase authentic inclusion for people with developmental disabilities by amplifying voices, supporting families, illuminating opportunities, and launching innovative solutions. The communities we serve are the Down Syndrome Association of Central Ohio here in Ohio. In case you've missed it, it's in all of our branding. We're from Ohio. We've got Learning Aid Ohio and Adult Literacy Ohio that we're going to be talking with you about today. Okay, so Maeve, thanks Maeve for looking out. It says the chat is disabled on her device. So what we can do is if you guys have Q&A that you want to ask along the way, then we can just put it into the Q&A feature. And at some point, we can also, I think, open up the allowing of you guys to talk and ask questions here. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Maeve.
Okay, so thank you all for joining us. As I already said, my name is Carrie Jones. I'm the president and CEO of Elevated. Through the different programs and services that we offer, we serve thousands of Ohioans with developmental disabilities and their families. I have been with the organization for the past 11 years and am a sibling. I have a brother, Alex, who just turned 40. You may have gotten a press release on his recent birthday, but he happens to have Down syndrome and is one of my favorite people on the planet. So this work is very personal to me, as well as, professionally too. So I'm excited to talk with you guys about adult literacy for those with developmental disabilities in Ohio.
My name is Rachel Haber. I am the program manager of Adult Literacy Ohio. And like Carrie, I am also a sibling. So I have a 27-year-old sister named Lauren who also happens to have Down syndrome. She also happens to have dyslexia, and that was not uncovered until she was a junior in high school. So again, very deeply connected to this work, passionate about helping people get what they need to help make their lives better through the power of literacy. And before we get too far into, I just want to shout out really quickly Sharon, Steve, Michelle, the whole team at COABE for inviting us to be here today. We're so glad to share the work that we're doing and also tune into some other sessions and learn from all of you. Just to have this space where we can have these important conversations means so much. So we're really excited.
Thanks, Rach. Okay, so what is Adult Literacy Ohio? We're going to talk to you specifically about the work that we've been doing, but we wanted to just kind of give some overarching information. You can also go to adultliteracyohio.org to learn more, but Adult Literacy Ohio is a self-directed literacy-focused program designed to serve adult learners by developing increased literacy skills that enhance really three main components that comprise parts of our world, which is community navigation, quality of life, and workplace confidence. So the real key to this work is finding and serving folks who have a self-expressed interest in literacy. This is really designed to support their goals and efforts, and we can't overstate that enough. You'll hear us talk about that a lot. But the three main areas that we've really housed the different areas of interest in are community navigation, quality of life, and workforce confidence, as we've looked at really what those stated goals really fall into. So just a little history about how we really began in this world. Rachel and I worked together years ago at the organization, and Rachel has a self-expressed interest in literacy and an education background. And we knew that there was something missing in the space for adults with developmental disabilities. We both have been very involved in something that was born out of Columbus, Ohio, the Next Chapter Book Club, which is a great resource that is now national and I believe international in terms of a space for adults with developmental disabilities to really continue to foster their interest in reading. But what it was missing is really the space to be able to gain some of those foundational skills associated with reading and literacy. So for years, we were kind of ideating on how do we tackle this issue? There are just so many logistics associated with it. And in a different program that we launched in 2020 called Learning Aid Ohio, we ended up building out a framework and really an online marketplace that connected tutors directly with learners. We were really then we created a solution unknowingly at the time that could help solve this problem, this need of adults with developmental disabilities who wanted to bone up on their literacy. So in late 2022, we decided to really launch an exploratory program of really looking at that time, adults with Down syndrome who had an express interest in learning how to read. And from there, we piloted a model that led to 17 learners who, over the course of 2022, began participating in one-on-one tutoring sessions. The model of the program is such that they were able to, through our technology, interview and book tutors that would then come to their home or a shared a meeting place that's agreed upon in the community in order to work on goals associated with that individual learner's interests and needs. By 2023, we had a partnership going with Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities that allowed us through ESSER funds to offer the program to recent graduates. So graduates from 2020, 2021, and 2022 were able to receive granted funds in order to participate in our program. We started to see really awesome emerging results that we'll talk about here, emerging outcomes that seemed anecdotal in nature, but we were collecting data along the way. We had baseline data. We had data that we'd been collecting through the tutoring sessions and at the end, but we really wanted some validation of what we were seeing from somebody else. So we scoured many people across the country and found Dr. Lemons, who we'll talk about here more in a little bit, who looked at the data from 50 learners who had been participating in our program from its onset and really helped us analyze and validate what we were seeing in terms of progress and best practices as well. So he not only did a look back on data, which we'll talk more about, but then provided recommendations for how we could continue to improve on our model. In 2024, we took some of those recommendations and continued to implement them. And by 2025, we launched our really kind of upgraded technology for Adult Literacy Ohio and positioning ourselves for future opportunities with funding through sustainable sources here in Ohio, including participant-directed goods and services. And if you guys have questions in the chat along the way, feel free to ask them. I'm usually in a much more interactive environment, so even being remote is hard for me and for Rachel. So feel free, you're not interrupting us if along the way you have questions. What we decided to do once we started and kind of simultaneously while we were having our data analyzed, we thought, let's just really take a look at what the broader interest is for adults. And we realized that no one had really asked adults more broadly that have developmental disabilities if they wanted to focus on literacy. We had a suspicion. We saw locally within the Down syndrome community here in Central Ohio a huge need and expressed interest, but we wanted to see more broadly across Ohio what we may see. So there are roughly 50,000 adults with developmental disabilities in Ohio, and spoiler, we did not get to capture all of their voices in our data, but we partnered up with our friends at Ocali Some of you may know of them if you spend time in the education space, but they're great, awesome leaders here in Ohio. And we partnered with them to put together a statewide survey that went out to caregivers and adults with developmental disabilities across Ohio. We heard from respondents from 77 of the 88 counties here in Ohio, nearly 700 respondents, and 94% said that they wanted to improve their reading skills. 88% that said, and this was notable, that they wish that they had more time focused on reading when they were in school. That was a really intentional question because we not only want to address an issue that's occurring for adults with developmental disabilities that are out in the community and world right now, but we also want to just ask curious questions and maybe focus from an advocacy standpoint on what more we can do educationally to focus on this issue so that we don't continue to churn out more adults with developmental disabilities who would say of this 88% that they wish that they had gotten more. We also asked each respondent why they wanted to learn how to read, and many cited that a third of them, nearly actually closer to half, said that they wanted to be able to get a job, to get a better job, or just do their job better. That was really significant for us. While we never ever push any of the learners to have a particular why, the why is driven by them. It's self-directed. They can have any reason they want to, that they want to participate. We thought that it was really notable that many of them they expressed that they wanted to do it for workforce purposes. These are some other big areas of interest that they have. Some of this might be cut off a little bit, or it maybe is by me, but they wanted to do things like be able to text or use social media and talk with their friends. As we look at mental health and just social isolation and things that we saw come out of the pandemic, more than ever, people are looking for ways to connect, and having the ability to text a friend versus call them is a significant one. People said things like they wanted to be able to travel out in their community. And just anecdotally, I'll share that my brother, Alex, who has participated in the program now, can now more readily access his Lyft app in order to get places. Even using an app to get somewhere is a barrier if you don't know that the word home is the word home. And so if you have that plugged into your phone, which he does, you need to know at least basic concepts of literacy in order to be able to leverage that accessibility feature to his world. We also saw that people have goals around just like community access in other ways. So not transportation related, but maybe it's being able to go out into restaurants and go in stores, just navigate, and also things at home like cooking and taking medications. And overall, we wanted to be sure to add this. It's not quite as high as some of the other things that we saw, but many said that they just wanted to be able to further advocate for themselves, which we found to be extremely powerful when you look at the world of developmental disabilities and everybody's sincere interest in affording people with developmental disabilities to express their own voices and advocate for themselves. We recognize and are now hearing from them that literacy plays a role in that. So when we look at kind of some of the notes that we heard from folks as their why they wanted to, we asked them to choose different categories, but then also left space available to hear what specifics in terms of their reasons. So we had things like, I want to be able to read my own mail. I used to be able to read science fiction, and I want to be able to do that again. I want to be able to read and look at papers at my own meetings. I want to be able to read subtitles. All of these things are all beautiful reasons that people want to be able to participate. Someone said, I'm now the mother to a 5-year-old son, and I don't want him to follow in my footsteps and struggle with reading the way I do. I want to be able to help him with his schoolwork. So we have all kinds of folks who responded to this survey that went out statewide, and every reason was amazing and incredible and very a powerful testament to all the beautiful reasons how of kind of their why. And it made us even more excited to continue with this work and expand really what we're sharing with you today. Competing on Wheel of Fortune seems like a really powerful one that I would be nervous about for other reasons. But anyway, in a nutshell, what we learned from the survey is that adults with developmental disabilities want to learn how to read. And in case you're curious, we did have accessibility features tied to accessing the survey. So there was a capacity for reading aloud, and we also asked for caregiver support in participating in it. So in case you're wondering how we were able to tackle that, we were really thoughtfully approaching even the survey itself, knowing that literacy is a barrier to accessing surveys. Rachel, is there anything else so far that you feel I think we need to cover?
I think that was great. No, I was just having flashbacks to taking that survey out to a couple different events and filling it out with people on site. That's such a great call out. The
Yeah.
accessibility in surveys is a huge, huge barrier to capturing accurate data when it comes to this kind of work. So
Yeah. Yeah. So again, we kind of, for lack of a better term, have talked about this in categories or buckets, if we're going to go fancy on the language here, with goals. And as we really launched this program, we began recognizing that you could really categorize the self-directed goals in a few different ways. One of them being community navigation. So, we've heard stories of people, if you take a look at Paige here, who's on the far left, she had an express interest in not only being able to read the music at church, but wanting to be able to read menus at restaurants. She wanted to really address some of her functional reading skills and said, I really just want to be able to understand more words when I'm out in the community. There are signs everywhere. There are so many different kind of ways that we don't even probably all recognize ourselves, that we're navigating just subconsciously by reading things when we're out and about. And that was one of the things that Paige had expressed that she wanted to to work on. Rachel, I don't know if you have stories here that you want to share about any of the other.
sure, you kind of teed Rhina up pretty nicely earlier because we already gave a shout out to Next Chapter Book Club and all the amazing work that they do. So Rhina in the middle here is a perfect example of someone who's been in a book club for years and years, has support from a trained facilitator to read aloud those words, but wanted something a little more robust. So she's pictured here with her tutor, Miss Sam, and they're working on all kinds of things, basic reading skills, oral fluency, writing skills. When she came to our program, she was reading 52 correct words per minute, exited at 64, which when you're in a book club and you're going around the table might not seem a lot, but that is a lot when you're literally on the spot once a week doing that. And it really made her feel confident and empowered with some of the feedback that we heard from Rhina and from Sam as well. And then here on the far right, we'll get to see a video of this learner later, which I'm really excited to show all of you, but I'll kind of tease it here by sharing that Erica came to our program with a lot of functional literacy goals. So she took hikes every single Saturday morning, and she let us know that she didn't like not being able to access the trail maps and the things along the trail. So you can see on the table there, her tutor went out to that metro park, got some of those brochures, and really wove them into their instruction together. Erica dedicated a semester to that. She had another grant cycle that she spent on cooking words because she's also an aspiring chef. She's involved in some of our other programs as well with cooking goals. So those are a couple things from that community navigation theme. And we'll flip it on over now to workforce development or workforce confidence. Carrie, you want to kick it off with Jake? I know you're really familiar
Yeah,
with him.
yeah. And I just think it's important that we also note that there are many learners that had more than just one stated goal. So they may have stated that they wanted something with community navigation and also with workforce development. So Jake here had expressed that he really just wanted less support at work. I think that it's important to note that people with developmental disabilities recognize that they are reliant on others a lot. And whenever they think that they may be able to do that a little less, they're usually up for it. So Jake had expressed that he really didn't want to have to ask for help as much, but found that because of literacy and the inability to read certain notes or signs at work, he was having to ask for help more. After participating in our program, Jake became more confident and was not having to ask as much at work for that support. There were also kind of these really beautiful unintended consequences that I would say occurred out of it. His tutor is an educator, and he began doing story time at her school in her classroom. Jake also uh, is navigating his community and just has an interest in reading more while out, and that his mother has noted. And one thing that I just love about the story of Jake is he's very active with us and was kind of one of our early participants in the program, one of our earliest learners. And his mom said that she basically finally, for the first time, is able to communicate her son as she does with her other children. I was with her at an event, and she's like pulling up her phone of the group family chat and saying, my Jakey can now communicate and engage in a way that he hadn't been able to do before with the family, just through group text. So for those of you that have family group texts, I'm sure sometimes you wish that you didn't have to be a part of them, but if you are, then you'll know how meaningful it is to stay connected to your family that way. And that's not why Jake chose to participate in the program, but it was certainly something that opened up access for him and created a space for more meaningful relationships with his friends and family. Um, so for the others, I don't know that I'm not sure how we're doing on time here, Rach, but go ahead and share if
I
you want
think
to hear about Carson or Amy.
I think we're doing okay. And with
Okay.
Jake, I wanted to, I have to, if there's anybody from Cincinnati, Southwestern Ohio in the room, I gotta share this story about a frog real quick, and then we'll zoom on. So Jake's mom, Paula, called me on a Monday morning and said, "You'll never believe what happened over the weekend. We go to the aquarium every single year. This is a trip we've done forever. And it's always so much fun. We look forward to it. But this year was so different, Rachel. This year was different because for the first time, Jake could look at the exhibits and then use some of those strategies that he had learned in his sessions with Miss Carey to decode the words. So, golden mantella. Sometimes when we do this presentation, I have the picture of the frog on there. But I think I just love that story because I think it's such a beautiful representation of the unintended consequences that we sometimes see with this kind of work. So that is Jake. You can see Carson there. He does not have a job yet, but he really, really wants one. And so he's there working on a mock job application. He's also cleaned up his resume a little bit. And Amy over there is working on some Spanish vocabulary. She teaches art classes and does a lot of advocacy work for the DD community. And as part of that, she wanted to make her presentations more accessible to folks who spoke other languages. And so she is working on both English and Spanish vocabulary words to help her do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then this quality of life. Gosh, I will not talk for hours, but this is the one where I really could talk for hours because this is like the beautiful catch-all that honestly, every single one of these stories we just shared could probably also fit into this bucket. So we've got James over here, around 50, works at a movie theater, has had this goal of wanting to learn how to read his entire life, and came to us with a really impressive bank of memorized sight words. But according to his direct service provider, really never had access to instruction beyond that. So for the very first time in our program, he was able to access phonics instruction. and understand, that letters make sounds and these sounds work together to produce words. And so by the end of his time with us, after about a year, he went from not having that conceptual knowledge to being able to read short sentences, which is a huge win. And we're so, so proud of him. You can see Mandy there in the middle. And I know this is a theme across adult ed when I've been in other talks. People wanting to share bedtime stories with younger relatives, people knowing that this is generational, right? If you are having barriers with literacy, there's a very good chance that that is going to impact your children as well. So we have Mandy, who had some cute nephews running around and really wanted to be able to share stories with them. And then Carrie already talked a little bit about texting goals, but you can see Chris there on the far right, who came to us really wanting to be able to, go beyond just one word text with his friends. Who is now using a combination of reading skills and speech to text to chain together 3 to 4 word text that he's able to send to his friends and family. All right.
So now that we've shared a little bit of the storytelling, which we're not done yet, of course, but we wanted to pause and just share a little bit about Dr. Lemons. He is somebody that he wished he could have been on today. He really wanted to be able to participate, but I believe he's at another conference or probably just crushing it with whatever work he's got on his plate in his full-time job. But he is the associate professor of special education at Stanford and has really spent his career in the space of literacy for the IDD community, so intellectual and developmental disability community. So we were really honored, really, that he was excited about the work that we were doing, that he wanted to not only take a hard look at our existing data, but also provide us recommendations how we could really strengthen our impact and just strengthen the efficacy of the program through tightening up some of our processes along the way as we were working to build out our technology.
All right. So as Carrie said, Dr. Lemons was very sad that he could not be here with us today. I am going to do my best to give these slides justice. He developed these for us, but please know that if there are questions you have that we can't answer today, we'll share our contact information at the end. And Dr. Lemons is always down to talk about literacy. So I'm sure if there's anything that stumps us, we can circle back with him and get you that answer. So throughout that partnership, there were really 3 main things that we were looking for. The first was a literature review to help us understand what was out there on how folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities developed reading skills and how effective a program like ours could be. The second was a data analysis to help us understand the effectiveness of the program. So like Carrie said, looking in the rear view, looking at what we'd already done and seeing what went well and what we could improve. And then on that note, looking forward, looking ahead, we wanted some recommendations for best practices, particularly ways to enhance the assessment component of the work that we were doing. And I'm sure this is probably something that everybody in this virtual room can relate to. You got to quantify your outcomes for your stakeholders to really, celebrate your work and understand that it's effective. So we were excited to partner with him to work on those 3 things. And we'll start with this review of the literature. So I'm going to pause here and share a couple of those outcomes. I also invite you to take a snapshot of this QR code, which will take you to that folder that has, I believe, 16 different abstracts and articles available related to this work. I also wanted to give a spoiler alert that is definitely not a spoiler alert to anybody who works in this field, which is that not only is this research limited, but the research specific to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities is even more limited. They've really been severely underrepresented, which of course creates barriers to deeper understanding of the role of literacy in their lives or how to even build out an effective program like this. So we were really grateful to have Dr. Lemons help us with this piece. So a couple key takeaways that I'll share quickly. I'm keeping an eye on the time here. Literacy instruction is often provided for people, this study was specific to folks with Down syndrome, but we know that it's applicable to probably other folks with developmental disabilities as well. They're getting that literacy acquisition instruction in primary school, but usually about 5th grade is when that's withdrawn. So at that point, there's a shift in emphasis from that literacy acquisition to more practical instruction in life skills. But our rallying cry, we always say we're gonna make like t-shirts or stickers. You still gotta do that. But we believe that literacy is a life skill. And one of our advocacy points is we believe that literacy should remain a priority for school-age students with disabilities for beyond the 5th grade, if that's something that they're still wanting to work on. We also found through this lit review that the global literacy rate for adults with developmental disabilities is as low as 3%. And then this bullet point, which is actually from Dr. Lemons himself, is that despite clear evidence that access to ongoing support can help people with developmental disabilities gain literacy skills, expectations and opportunities for literacy learning remain low. So we're really eager to be here today because we know that all of you in this room share that belief that literacy is so important. And one reason that we're so excited to be part of this conversation is because we want that to change. We want to be, changing the conversation that our expectations can be higher and that these folks deserve opportunities to access this kind of support. Is there anything else from the lit review that you wanted to share, Carrie?
No, I think you covered it. I mean, just reiterating that there just isn't a lot out there for the developmental disability community as it relates to literacy, which is why we know that part of the conversation that's kind of unspoken is just highlighting that adults with developmental disabilities can learn how to read, and they can continue to grow in their skills. And while no one ever explicitly states that, it leaves me curious, even among our community here in Ohio, we haven't been asking the question of, do you want to learn how to read or do you want to learn how to read better? Which that alone, unfortunately, feels like we've been doing a disservice to this population who is really expressing with eagerness their interests and desires to learn how to read.
I'll never forget a 30-year-old that we served telling me in a phone call, I don't feel like I was ready. Like, I am ready for this now. I am in a place in my life where my friends are able to do things that I can't. I'm not able to effectively communicate with them. Um, you know, this stat that I'll pull out as well. So for some older readers, including some with intellectual and developmental disabilities, the period of development across adolescence and adulthood may actually be the best time for education to occur. So for that stat, I know there's a gazillion other stats out there about the importance of early intervention. And of course, we agree with all of that as well. But what we're saying is that let's look at all these folks. We just talked about the 669 that we heard from in Ohio. We know there's so many others out there who are hungry for this kind of support. Let's give them that chance. Let's give them that opportunity and the support. Okay. Ooh, here we go. All right. So the main takeaways that Dr. Lemon summarized for us, which Carrie and I just shared, that adults with developmental disabilities can continue to benefit from literacy instruction into adulthood. They contribute to a person's well-being in so many different ways. So independence, employment, overall life satisfaction, and that these programs are a solid investment when research-based strategies are included. Okay. There we go. Okay, so this is going back to that bullet point you saw on the timeline that was our data analysis. So between program inception, February 22, and the end of summer 2023, Dr. Lemons looked at the data captured in that time period from 50 learners. You can see the average age was right around 26. And again, I know Carrie has alluded to it. Folks come to us, and I'm sure they come to you as well with all different kinds of goals. What we do for each grant period is try to focus on two that are self-directed, person-centered, that we feel like over the course of that grant cycle, their tutor can support them in making meaningful progress towards that goal. Okay, so what are the goals based on? Here you can kind of see some of the different buckets that they fell into. So you can see the largest one here is phonics. Again, we shared the story of James earlier. We've served quite a few folks who have come to us and for whatever reason, they just haven't had exposure to that yet. And that decoding, that those phonics skills, or that gateway to the literacy skills that they're seeking. So that is our largest one, closely followed by word reading. And then close behind in third place is these functional literacy skills. Here you can see progress on both, progress on either, kind of broken down by those different buckets. And a highlight that we're really proud of that Dr. Lemons pulled from spreadsheets on spreadsheets, nightmare spreadsheets. I was mortified to have him go through just the variety of spreadsheets we had going on. But he did, and he poured over them and could see that 100% of learners who engaged in more than one tutoring window with us made notable progress on at least one of their goals, which we're really excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so knowing that the literature review supports the importance of this work, the data review confirms that learners are benefiting, and the assessment project that we worked on, which helps us to focus tutoring and enhance that progress monitoring. Give me just 1 second, folks. I believe I skipped a slide. There we go. Okay. There were a couple more things here that I'm just going to run through. I think we have till 3:40, so I think we're still doing good. Okay, so on individualizing instruction, these are strategies that you're probably using in your own adult ed programs as well, but making it meaningful. That's a theme that I'm sure you've heard a lot at this conference. So we're reiterating that same message here. Why? Why does this person want to be here? And how can we integrate that into their instruction early and often to remind them of that? So with Erica, if she wants to walk that trail in the woods, let's get those trail mats. Teaching for comprehension. So we know that learning skills in isolation is not only boring, but it's also not really going to get you very far. So we mentioned having those 2 goals per grant cycle. And whenever folks are working on something that's really, really basic, so for example, if they are in that place where it's that early phonemic awareness, early phonics, we're also encouraging them to have their second goal as some kind of stretch goal. And that can look a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's listening comprehension. Rhina, who you saw earlier, really enjoyed listening to TED Talks on some really interesting topics. And so they would dedicate, 30 minutes of their session to the foundational things, and then they would take 10 minutes at the end to watch a TED Talk and to have some listening comprehension practice on that, including writing instruction. So there's a ton of research out there about the importance of writing, probably some sessions within this conference, so I won't spend a ton of time on it. But a key takeaway is that when learners are working on writing, their comprehension and their fluency skills also tend to improve. For phonics skills, we already talked a little bit about James. We had another mom who shared with us on her final survey that watching her son learn conceptual phonics was like watching a light bulb come on. Again, he came with that really impressive bank of sight words. There's a large body of research, especially in the Down syndrome community, about how memorization is like a superpower. And that is so true. And that is, we always want to build on strengths, right? But we also want to give folks the opportunity to go deeper if they're really wanting to have that opportunity to extend their word bank beyond what they've memorized. Mm-hmm. So considering other skills, number 5, some of our most compelling success stories come from learners who had communication goals. When we named this Adult Literacy Ohio, we had a program a few years back that was specific to reading. We decided to go literacy here because we know that that means a lot of different very important things. So we refer to literacy as reading, writing, communicating, listening, and speaking. Mm-hmm. We've had folks tackle vocabulary goals, so recipe words for aspiring chefs, We had somebody who got really into jewelry making. I loved reading those session notes because they would not only learn all these really cool knots, but then they would make all these bracelets and things at the end, which I thought was a really cool real world application. Again, bringing it back to the why, making it really meaningful and relevant. Digital literacy. We've had tutors who have worked really hard on speech to text for learners who really want to improve those texting skills. We've had others who have, it's been kind of cool, they use it as a double check. So we had one lady who, wanted support in making her grocery lists every week. But the spelling was hard. So her tutor would have her do voice commands into her phone to populate what the word was on Google, and then she could write it down and have her grocery list that she could then go to the grocery with her support person, and both of them were able to read it and make sure she got the items that she needed. Okay, and I also wanted to touch real quick on confidence. So this is a question that we ask in our exit surveys, and it's a data point that we're really proud of. 94% of learners in our program said that our program helped to build their self-confidence, and around 95% said it helped them to learn new skills that help them to be more independent. That's at number 5. Number 6, assessment is critical. So we know that assessment is important for all kinds of different reasons, right? We know it helps us to understand those areas of strength and growth. We know it helps tutors to tailor and customize their instruction, and ultimately it helps to improve outcomes. So in addition to the SMART goals that we initially had, Dr. Lemons helped us out with developing a framework for goal attainment scales, which have helped us to strengthen our data collection practices while still honoring the person-centered aspects of our program. Because we knew that was really important to us. That was sacred to us to have those person-centered goals. Number 7, designing for transfer. Whew, time for a sip of water. So designing for generalization, making sure that your learners can apply whatever they're learning in their tutoring sessions to the real world. You already saw on the table with Erica, she had those trail maps. We've had other people who have brought their actual medical forms that they have to fill out into their sessions. We had Carson with those job applications. So this really goes back to that individualization and teaching for meaning that we talked about at the beginning. And enhancing preparation of tutors. So Carrie spoke at the beginning about the model of our program. So it is a marketplace where we're populating it with licensed educators, speech language therapists, and folks who believe in this work. That last one is last but certainly not least. Folks who believe that adults with developmental disabilities can still make progress towards their literacy goals. And Dr. Lemons gave us some tips on how we can enhance that preparation piece as well. I am so sorry for skipping over that. Let me get back to where we were now. Okay, Carrie, Candace's story, take it away.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk with you guys about this one. So, I mentioned earlier in our early days, we were really funding this program initially out of the Down Syndrome Association of Central Ohio's budget. We had polled adults with Down syndrome specifically at that time and gone after grants and donors that could underwrite the cost of participation for adults with Down syndrome. Once we saw really early positive signs and had data to back it up, that was really when that partnership with the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities came into existence, and we were able to access ESSER funds. ESSER funds, of course, were federal relief dollars that I'm sure many of you have heard of. And at that time, we were able to expand participation beyond just the Down syndrome community, beyond Central Ohio. And that's when we met Candace. Candace was really essentially nonverbal and was someone who was really completely reliant on words and images on a device in order to communicate. And Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong here, but generally speaking, this is where Candace came to us. She wanted to participate in the program and spent one-on-one time in a day program setting with a tutor that came into her environment and began working with her on her goals. By the end of the participation, which was around 10 or 12 months of participating in these one-on-one sessions, Candace is now able to communicate using typing and using up to 9 words in a string of a sentence. And so she really went from a space where she was really heavily, if not exclusively, reliant on the words that people thought she wanted to say, to within a year's time being able to type all sorts of words, really all kinds of possibilities in her own way of communicating. That's unbelievable. This is one of the first times I've been able to even talk about it without getting like emotional and crying, because the fact that this person went all the way through our education system, and really we weren't doing right by her. And I don't blame anybody in education, by the way. It's a systemic thing that we all need to work on together and address. But we were so grateful to be in a position to really elevate Candace's voice. So she's now actively engaged in her day program in a way that she wasn't before. Rachel has shared that, now when they're hosting an event or a party, she's the one typing out a list of all the supplies and things that they're going to need. Who knows? Someday that may lead to Candace exploring vocational opportunities. For now, she's just a much more active and engaged member in her community, undoubtedly, but also within the day program where she spends a lot of her waking hours. So we were totally blown away by this. We did not expect to see this, but I like this story for so many reasons, including just how life-changing, um, you know, 1 year's time can be in someone's life to dramatically alter their access to the community. But I also um, really like it because it's something that, when we were asked early on, are you going to have a level, a framework, a minimum of like where someone needed to come in with their literacy skills in order to participate in the program? And we said no. We felt very strongly, Dr. Lemons felt very strongly, other advisors that we've had involved have said, we don't need to set a minimum threshold here. We believe that like this investment is important for all adults with developmental disabilities and that they can learn. And we want to start with that. And so I think I'm not clear on the details of Candace, nor do I need to know them, but I could suspect that people may have not fully appreciated or known what her skills were with that limited access in her communication. And now they're getting to know more of Candace than they ever would have before. So you can read the comments from her tutor on here, but I think just generally Candace's story is a really beautiful one and a really powerful testament.
Thanks for sharing that, Carrie. It was Candace's authentic voice. Those were the words that her tutor used when she called me for this kind of breakthrough, right? This skill that they were able to really tap into existing skills that she had that were in there that just hadn't been extracted. So to be able to come to say exactly what she wanted instead of coming close, that is a beautiful, beautiful quote from Amy.
Yeah.
So Connie, I wanted to include in here, Carrie alluded to the fact that we had a state grant that was specific to graduation years. And something that I think is so important, and I'm sure all of you in the room see this in your programs too, is that literacy means so much to people over the arc of their lifetime. Connie is the most seasoned, I should say, the most seasoned learner that we have served in our program, but we have others in their, 60s, a couple others in their 70s that are eager to get these services. I will never, ever forget the first conversation I had with Connie's sister calling in. And like, she was skeptical if we were real. She's like, is this a scam? And I was like, no, like this is a real program. And she's like, it just feels too good to be true. Like there's just nothing else like this that is available for her in this one-on-one way. and Connie has a couple different barriers to learning, but our tutor has really been able to get to know her over the course of the months that they've worked together. And while her progress has not been linear, we know that progress is not always linear. Connie is as motivated as ever, and you can see some of her reasons right there, about wanting to be able to surprise the people at church. Okay, I'm going to scoot this one down. Next one. Okay, so this right here is Erica, who we talked about earlier. So hopefully you guys can hear this video, fingers crossed. All right, Carrie, you wanna speak to that
Yeah,
one? Your
hopefully.
literacy.
Yeah, I couldn't hear it, but I'm hopeful everyone else could.
Oh, no, no,
So I don't
no.
know, but essentially, in a nutshell, Erica has many stated goals. We talked about her in the beginning, and just kind of one beautiful thing that I want to note is that I've known Erica for over 10 years now, and many of the folks on our team have known her as well. And I've known her as essentially nonverbal. So literacy has not only helped her navigate the world around her, but it's given her an actual voice. Not that I'm sure she talks to people that she sees more regularly, but her interest in reading, and even if you couldn't hear, hopefully you could, but she is very proud of herself. So there's a confidence component there. But even just using her voice is something that I was blown away when I first saw this video, just for that alone. Okay.
So this is an important, as we get close to the end here, this file size was a little too big for me to upload into Hooba. I want to say it now so I don't forget. If you are interested in this deck, for the QR codes, for the video that you probably couldn't hear, I'm so sorry. We will be happy to email that to you, if you'd like to reach out to us. So here is a QR code to our website, adultliteracyohio.org, where you can find more information about our work. And over here, I won't play it because you probably can't hear it, but here is Caden telling us that Adult Literacy Ohio has helped him to advocate for himself.
So now we can open it up for, oh, we have a little bit more here. Okay. So we want to thank all of our supporters. And I think before we get to questions, it's important to note that we wholeheartedly believe in collaboration. We've now served roughly 100 adults across Ohio that have developmental disabilities participating in this program. We have some contracts with local county boards of developmental disabilities. The Down Syndrome Association of Central Ohio continues to underwrite support. We have the National Down Syndrome Society, many other foundations. We have corporate support here locally, and we've also had partnerships with Ocali and the Ohio State University LEND program, in order to kind of help us continue to grow and tinker with our program model. So we are very, very grateful for our supporters, our collaborators, our friends, our partners in getting this magic really off the ground, and really are eager and open to ways on how we can continue to expand this work. So thank you. Now, I think we can open it up if anyone has questions. We're eager to answer them for you with the remaining time we have. Thank you all for giving us your time this afternoon. Okay, so we have a question that came in from Maeve. It says, I oversee a Department of Workforce Development high school equivalency program in Indiana. We have seen an influx of students this year who have completion certificates from high school and cognitive disabilities. We want to serve them, but we are not sure our program is the place for them to learn to read. As far as I know, there aren't any programs like yours in Central Indiana. I would love any tips, resources, or suggestions for serving this population of eager learners. Yeah, that is a great question and one that I would love to answer for you, Maeve. I think one of the things that makes us really excited is that we hear unanimous agreement that this is needed. Like the workforce development folks and service providers that reach out to us, we've had Goodwills here within Ohio that are like, we can think of a dozen people who could access this program and it would absolutely make them more employable. But funding is the big question, as it is with so many things in our sector. We believe that this is an investment that could be made through workforce development arms. In Ohio, we have the opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities. We also have a Department of Developmental Disabilities. I think that there's even some space within the Department of Education, although, I mean, really, it would be taking a look at what is the best pathway in order to meet the goals. We definitely see that there are lots of folks who want to participate in this program that don't have workforce development goals. But if you had people that did, then I could certainly see this as a model that you could explore. We do have the technology already built, so we could have some discussions around some of that at some point if that's of interest, to help kind of maybe create an opportunity with the framework already in place. I mean, that's a future goal of ours. I don't think that's something that we could do right now, but we're happy to talk more offline. We have a shared interest in expanding this work, and it's not something we want to keep a secret to just Ohioans for sure. Um, we have a question from Lori in here. I teach ESL, but I have some students that never went to school growing up, and sometimes it feels like I'm teaching students with disabilities. Tutoring would be so useful for them, but I teach online. There are just so many learning gaps. Yeah, I mean, I think tutoring and one of the things that we think is so critical is really just um, taking a look at literacy that is occurring in school or isn't and addressing that as best we can with adult learners. So I'm not sure, Rachel, if you have any thoughts on that, but
Yeah, I was just gonna say too, along with that first question, I'm happy to, if you didn't snap that QR code, there are some tidbits within that literature review that might be helpful. We're also, believers that good literacy instruction is good literacy instruction, and often what our learners need is more time and more repetition. So I think there's some research in there that states that it's like 4 times as many repetitions as you would use with somebody that you might see in one of your regular classes. So with that said, Carrie and I don't want to keep any of this a secret. So if you want to reach out, we'd be happy to share that info from Dr. Lemons with you. And there are so many learning gaps. I'm just nodding my head vigorously in agreement with that because yes, there are.
yeah. If there are any other questions, we'd love to see them come through. I guess we're here. You can come find us. We're not actually there in Texas. So for those of you that are, thanks for joining us remotely. We're really excited about this work and hope that you can walk away and at minimum think about ways that you could look to expand the conversation and literacy for adults with developmental disabilities in your community.